It is that time again for a closer, more analytical look at the week's top stories with our Powerhouse Roundtable this morning.
And boy, we've got another good one for you today. H.T. Smith is back. He's a Miami attorney, professor of law at the Florida International University Law School. Ed Pizzoli, an active voice in the Republican Party and president of the Tripp Scott Law Firm in Fort Lauderdale. And welcome back to Jessica Fernandez, president of the Miami Young Republicans. She was the youngest delegate at last summer's Republican convention in Cleveland.
And the youngest member of the roundtable, no doubt.
Yeah, we're glad you're balancing out sort of the older members, of which I am one. H.T. Smith, the strike on Syria this week, it was clearly the decisive moment, I think, of President Trump's presidency, and overall the reaction in this country, I think, has been supportive.
Well, anybody who's humanitarian see the faces of those people, and especially the children, the babies, wanted some type of action to be taken. And who in the world could take the action? The United States of America. So with regard to that, I definitely feel that the action should have been taken. The question now is there a policy? Is there a strategy?
Right.
Is there a Trump doctrine with regard to that? Let's look at this part. One, Donald Trump said it really, in essence, it broke his heart to see what was happening to those children. Yep. Well, you can't say that on the one hand. On the other hand, say, I'm closing the doors of America to these people who are being treated that way.
A ban on all Syrian refugees, yeah.
Yes.
You know, there were, I don't think we have ever seen such bipartisan support, especially we heard this week from South Florida's lawmakers to the strike. But across the board, the congressmen and women had said, Ed, the president needs to come to us to decide, come with a policy and let us, is it regime change? Is it, what is it? And what do you think about going forward?
Well, there's a couple things. Let me make a comment first. I do think he should have consulted Congress. In fairness, we've come and talked about constitutional issues. I think he should have consulted Congress.
Doesn't that take away the immediacy?
Well, he could have done it 20 minutes before the strike. Mm-hmm. But putting that aside, I do think that it was, you want to talk about policy, I think this policy of this president is significantly different than the last president we had. President Obama had a red line, he drew a red line, they crossed the red line, there was no response. That happened over and over again. This president has a red line, and if you cross it, you're going to pay. And that is an important message not only to Syria, but to the Russians, to North Korea, and to those in the general Middle East region, because America now is at least going to mean what they say and say what they mean. That's a very important policy distinction from 8 years of Obama.
Yeah, Jessica, I'm sorry, Jessica, weigh in on this issue. And when you heard about this airstrike, I mean, we had all seen these horrific, heartbreaking images of the people dying from the sarin gas, and thought it deserved a response of some kind. Do you agree that was the right thing?
I think that a response was definitely needed. I think this helps to restore America's credibility, and what we say that we're going to do when you cross a certain line, that we're going to come through on that. I think that it's obviously nobody wants to get into a protracted war like we did in Iraq, but we're in this place, and many people agree. There's almost universal consensus that the Obama-Syria policy failed. And I think this is the culmination of that. So I agree with some of the comments that HT said. This is more of a tactical approach right now. And what we really need to see is a strategy. So, I did think that he needs to consult Congress. This is part of our Constitution that the president must consult with Congress. And I'm sure that he will in the coming days.
Authorization for military.
And that's what Donald Trump said, that he felt when Obama was about to move, that he should move, get permission of Congress, consult with them at least, or else it'd be a big mistake. But let me just say, with regard to what Ed said, I really think that Obama wanted to get chemical weapons out of the hands of Assad, right, the Putin puppet, and that's what Trump wants to do. So Obama had an arrangement where Putin was supposed to...
He was supposed to take the
chemical weapons and destroy them.
Yeah.
Now we know, and he said he did. Yeah. Now we know he lied.
Well, this changes the whole equation of the relationship between President Trump and Putin, as far as we can tell.
But it impacts the credibility, frankly, of the former President Obama. Susan Rice and some others came on television and said that they had achieved getting rid of chemical weapons in Syria. That was flat out wrong.
Yes.
And so the credibility of the United States under that administration was impacted negatively. And now this is tactical, certainly, and we need to think more strategically as to the region. Now you see Secretary of State Tillerson going to Russia this week,
Tuesday,
right? This week, and I think you're going to see more of that. Also, remember who Donald Trump was having dinner with at the time, the Chinese leaders, right?
I mean, Chinese president.
And so that sends a clear message to them as well that this is a president who is going to act in our interest and act in the interest of, frankly, I agree with HT, act in the interest of where we can, tactically.
So the question now is, and this morning there was some confusion. The Secretary of State this morning on one of the cable shows said, we have no interest in regime change. That's not our goal. Yet, UN Ambassador Nikki Haley also this morning had said, quote, I don't see a peaceful Syria without Assad.
Well, I mean, I don't think that we can see a peaceful Syria with Assad. However, we know that when we have taken a policy of regime change, that has had negative consequences in the past. So we really need to be opening up our minds and you know, all the resources that we have to come up with a compromise, with a solution that's going to work. We don't need Syrians fleeing Syria. We need to make Syria a safe place so Syrians can continue to live in their country.
With global partners.
Well,
with global partners.
And let's not forget, 2 days after the strike with the Tomahawk missiles, the Assad regime went right back to the exact same neighborhood and dropped
and bombed again.
Rockets and bombs. So do we protect them from being murdered, or we protect them only if it's chemical weapons?
All
I don't
these
know.
open questions. If I may, I thought it was pretty remarkable. I can't remember any time in the last many years where all 7 members of the House of Representatives from South Florida, I'm not counting Lois Frankel from West Palm Beach because that's a little out of our
Can't
area.
see our program from there.
But you know, Republicans, Democrats all said that they basically supported the president. They want authorization. They want him to come. But here's what a couple of members of Congress said.
The next step should be for Congress to debate an authorization to use military force so that it doesn't expand beyond this. And that should happen right away.
I would like to have Assad removed from power, but is the American public ready to make that commitment? We've been in Iraq. We're still in Afghanistan. We've got 1,000 troops in Syria. I don't think that we have the stomach for yet another involvement. I don't think the will is there.
And Ileana Ros-Lehtinen is former chair of the House Foreign Relations Committee, very knowledgeable about this part of the world. And yet, Ed, they're all kind of saying, I thought when I spoke with some of them on Friday, we're entirely relevant to making foreign policy decisions about the use of military force. And they're right.
They're relevant in their constitutional role. I think there should have been a consultation. I don't disagree with anything that was said in that piece. What I would say, though, is that President Trump, as a candidate, was against any foreign entanglements. If you remember, a lot of those statements were made, you know,
right.
and I think that policy really hasn't changed dramatically. There was an opportunity here for a tactical response to a horrible, horrible crime.
So this was a one-off?
It might be. Well, no, it's not a one-off, but what it is, it's a building of what might become more of what you see from the Trump administration. And so this is a tactical piece. There are times when it's important for us to flex our muscles for a lot of reasons. Yeah. It wasn't just for Syria, it was for Russia as well.
Yeah.
Well, it was for the moral standing of the United States in the world.
Absolutely. And I think that with regard to this, we must also be reminded that President Obama went to Congress and asked for authorization for military action, and they did
refused.
Nothing.
Yeah,
all right, we have to take a quick break. Halftime. Stay with us.
Come back live in our studio this morning, an outstanding roundtable discussion, and let's go to temporary protected status for Haitian Americans. Haitians, they are not Americans yet. HT, there are 58,000 Haitians, most of them in South Florida, who are protected by an executive order issued by President Obama that allows them to stay here, to work legally, because the situation in Haiti the earthquake and then the Hurricane Matthew last year, and general dysfunction is so terrible. Now that expires July 22nd. I went to a news conference on Thursday of this week. A number of Haitian American leaders say it is time for this to be extended. Do you have any idea that President Trump would extend TPS?
To be honest, I do not know whether he will extend, but I think that our community should rally around the Haitians in our community who are law-abiding, hard-working, good people. My barber happens to be one of them, right up in Little Haiti area. And really, the Haitians have not been treated fairly over the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, we all know that.
They had no wet foot, dry foot, certainly.
Well, yeah, they had no wet foot, dry foot, but I'm saying, you know, I would see the signs coming in. As soon as they arrived on the land, they were turned around and turned back, placed in Chrome Detention Center, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that a lot of responsible people in this community will speak up to their political leaders and President Trump to extend protective custody for them.
Do you know what's so confusing? Temporary protected status is a status conferred on people from countries where there is war or earthquake damage. The Central American countries, after the hurricane in the late 90s, Mitch, I forgot the name of the hurricane, they to this day have temporary protected status, and it keeps being renewed. Why not Haitians?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I actually think that President Trump, there's a good argument to be made. He came down during the campaign and met with Haitian leaders and committed to them to keep them in the forefront of his mind. I agree that, you know, those who are lawfully here, those who are living a lawful and legal life, you know, here. Your barber does a great job, by the way. and you know, so that really needs to be a consideration. I got to tell you, that'd be interesting to see what the Trump administration does, because it is such a vital issue around the stability both of South Florida economy, as well as what the choice is. Are we going to send 56,000 people back to Haiti, which is still
Haiti
a
could
big
not
mess.
really accept 58,000 people
58,000,
in the matter of months if that were to come to pass.
And it's, you know, it's been 6.5 years since the earthquake, and since that time, you know, we've had political turmoil on the island. They've been hit with another hurricane. So there's a lot of challenges, and I think the fact that they are here in a legal status, they are working, I think that will benefit them when they're weighing the facts. And, you know, this is all about, you know, picking up the phone call, good old letter writing. Right. So this is the Congress needs to see that this is important to the community.
Well, excuse me, I would point out, according to Marlene Bastien, Haitian Women of Miami, she says every South Florida member of Congress has written to the president saying, please extend TPS to these Haitians. So,
and we need some people other than Haitian Americans.
But we need other people in the community.
By the way, not only is it good policy in terms of equity, it's good politics. My barber loves Donald Trump. I tell him when I come in there, I don't want to hear anything about Donald Trump, just cut my hair. A lot of Haitians and Haitian Americans are Republicans and proud of it.
Don't move your head during a haircut. Okay. But here's the key. I do think HE has it right. You've got to have both the Anglo-American community, Latin community, all of South Florida should try to push on this issue, should they believe it. I think it's a matter of equity.
And as a matter of fact, another similar neighbor of ours, where we have many Venezuelans who have fled from Venezuela and are here, Jessica, they're looking at the continuing chaos in Caracas and throughout the country. And I mean, this is a terrible situation down there, but how's it going to be resolved?
I mean, ultimately, this has to come from the Venezuelan people itself. You know, we've tried to force regime changes in other countries and within our own hemisphere, Cuba, and it hasn't been successful. So this really needs to come from the Venezuelan people. When the people are, you know, I hate to say it, hungry enough, and, you know, their kids are not getting fed every day, it has to reach a critical peak.
Has it not already?
I mean, some would say it has, especially with the recent Supreme Court basically dissolving Parliament.
Beware of someone who wants to deal with all the inequity in society, like we hear in the United States here. It's a lesson for us to learn. Beware of those people who want to say, we have to deal with this inequity of this or that, because what they did in Venezuela is they took everybody and they made everybody equally as poor.
Redistribution of wealth was supposed to be the goal, but what had happened is that the country is sinking
everybody down and everything down, and it is a tragedy, and we need to do what we can to help but it's ultimately up to the
Up to the
Venezuelan people.
Venezuelans. Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. Well, another good roundtable.
International
Jessica,
Relations
Ed
Roundtable.
Pizzoli, great to see you.
Yeah.
See you on Fox Business often. You're a man of many television networks. Thank you
Man of
very much.
mystery.
And who has me afraid now to go to my comedy.
We're going to get you, Barbara, credit on this program.
All right, we'll see you again
Thanks
soon.
again. All right, Florida lawmakers are about to upgrade the Stand Your Ground law. Does it need one? That's next.